sides of this question with our next guest. She's a criminal investigator, mother of 2 teenagers, and the author of The Ultimate Betrayal. Welcome back, Danine Manette.
Thank you. Hi. Thank you. Hi.
Infidelity became public in part through text messages. So how do we garner our privacy in this age of technology? Well, here with some insight is the author of Ultimate Betrayal. She's also a criminal investigator. Welcome back, Danine Manette. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Infidelity expert Danine Manette, author of Ultimate Betrayal.
Danine, what are your thoughts on this case?
In my opinion, she just seems like from what I've read, she just seems like she's just mean and nasty with a jacked up attitude. You know, but Dr. Drew, this guy has more bodies around him than Jim Jones. I mean, yes. And once somebody kills once, they'll kill again. It's easier to kill again. It's kind of like an animal with the taste of blood. I really believe, as Cheryl alluded to, that he could have been involved in more of these dead bodies that were around him than meets the eye.
Isn't there just rage on both sides here being acted out? Isn't that really what we're talking about tonight?
I think it's fear.
It is, Dr. Drew, but the thing is that I don't think that you would be trying to run someone over. I think you'd be trying to just get away from the situation, and if that was collateral damage, then so be it. Now, what I tell my kids all the time is that there should have been 11 commandments and not 10, and the 11th commandment being don't start none, won't be none. In other words, don't write a check your butt can't cash. This was a cultural collision of epic proportions. This was 2 completely different worlds colliding. That's what we saw today. And people seem to not want to acknowledge, or maybe don't realize, that in a lot of minority communities, especially in the black community, there is a distinct distrust of the police and of the justice system. And so what we have is a girl who's in a situation that nobody wants to be in, especially from her community, where she is a witness in a criminal case. I mean, we're talking about this whole no snitching generation. So she is completely a fish out of water here, and rather than pay attention to her mannerisms and the way she's saying things, we just need to focus on the content of what she's saying and the validity of her answers.
Is the Jody fog contagious? Danine, what do you think?
Absolutely not. This is no fog. This is a typical man response to a woman talking, and all he hears, just like in the old Peanuts cartoons, blah, 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 blah. I mean, my husband does this to me. I have to admit. If I'm talking about bills or something at work and I can just see him gloss over and he tunes out and I have to like insert the word boobs or something into the conversation to bring him back. So we as parents also need to be aware of our children's reactions to people instead of, oh, go on over there, stop being rude and go kiss your Uncle Joe.
Yeah.
You know, if your child is showing you something, you know, an unspoken thing, don't take the power away from your child.
Oh, Danine, this stuff is very challenging. Did you catch the way Dad was immediately saying, I want to know what she did?
So funny, because this woman thinks that she's so smart. She thinks she's like smarter than Einstein. And she bumbles around like Frankenstein. You know, like nobody knows what she's up to. She can't, if she had half a brain in her head, she would have covered her tracks a little bit better. She would have called from the crime scene and was like, Travis, stop, leave me alone. Hung up the phone. You know, just something that would support what she's saying. Everyone was on to her. Her dad was on to her. Everyone was on to her. She's not smart. Women know women, and women can pick up evil in another woman, just like men know men. Men can tell when another man is trying to push up on his girl or whatever. Women know women, and I think that is so telling that she had that inclination to think, you know, that she was out there listening. Because Jody, to me, is like a snake. And I want to apologize in advance to the reptile world, because I'm sure they're getting offended that I'm comparing her to them. But the way she just slithers around and coils up and pretends to be innocent and your friend, but then cross her and she bites you.
Danine, I know you had a huge crush on Todd Bridges. I didn't share that with him last night, but I understand that, well, it was a few years ago, mind you, but I understand you wanted to react to what he said last night.
Yes, and in 7th grade, my locker was covered with Todd Bridges' pictures.
Well, there you go.
So, with that being said, Todd, man, that entire statement about I have friends who dress black. What does it mean to dress black? I don't understand what he meant by that. I mean, he's sitting up here talking about gross generalizations and racial profiling, but I'm assuming that he means that he has friends that dress like thugs, so he's interchanging the words black and thug, which is a problem to me for 2 reasons. Number 1, Trayvon was not dressed like a thug. He was dressed like a young man who was covering his head to stay out of the rain that night.
First, I want to give Danine a chance to respond to her comment about lying down with dogs last night. If you recall, why don't you revisit that for us? My executive producer and I were talking about how we need to compile a daily dose of Danine's, because you're coming up with some zingers. But explain the lying down with dogs for us.
Well, see, it's
and
not
the response
that part.
you got on Twitter, by the way.
The thing is that when I made the comment about some women being so desperate that they'll just, for a pair of pants in the house, that they'll just take any, philandering pig and lying down with dogs, I was not talking about the deceased betrayed wife. I think a lot of people were the impression that I was bashing her. I was talking about the home wreckers. That's where my issue is. I would never bash a betrayed wife. I'm very protective of betrayed spouses. But the home wreckers, it's open season on them. I have no love for them. None.
But isn't the duty really that, doesn't it really belong to the husband? Shouldn't he be the one who's faithful to his wife?
I see him in custody in his jumpsuit with his handcuffs on, and I feel real good about that because he's getting what's coming to him. But then I see those little home wreckers parading around on the stand. Oh, it was a threesome, and they just enjoying this limelight because they're feeling so special about themselves, and that makes me sick. So I'm calling them out on it at this point because he's getting his just rewards right now. I am quite sure that that is the reason that they weren't doing the checks on him because he would spend hours on end doing this.
Danine, as always, your diabolical mind. Your diabolical mind comes up with an interesting explanation. I agree with you.
Information.
I agree with you.
Nobody wants to look in on that every 15 minutes.
That is interesting.
I agree with last week's report.
All right, Lauren, you agree with that?
Well, that was interesting. I hadn't thought of that because,
listen, you guys, only the diabolical mind of Danine gives us that kind of insight. So that's why she's here.
Dr. Drew, one thing that I've learned over the last few years is that in a lot of these medical correctional facilities, all of the sex offenders are housed together, which means the rapist and the child molesters are housed in one area, and the rapists prey on the child molesters. And that's kind of how they live in there. So I don't know, that may make some people feel better.
They prey on them.
I feel better.
Hold on, you mean they physically act out on them?
They physically act out on the child molesters because they're all housed together in some of these medical facilities. So I don't know if that helps some people.
Fantastic.
To
just a nirvana, I tell you.
What this mother has done in this situation, which to me gives me the opinion and impression that she had nothing to do with it, is that she has completely thrown this kid under the bus and has point-blank identified him in court. And that's something that you just don't do. When you get into cahoots with someone and you make this deal and there'll be phone records and other things that could possibly tie them together down the road, you say, I can't really remember what they look like. I don't know. She pointed to him in court and said that's the person that did it. And that is not something someone would do if they had conspired with this person to commit this crime. Her behavior and her mannerisms do not seem to be of a grieving wife or of someone who really recognizes the seriousness of this situation. But what I don't see is evidence of her being a murderer or being involved in this murderous plot. I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for that to come out. But all I see is someone who was trying to cover up an affair and who was acting inappropriately. Even Ariel Castro's family and children cut him loose. They said, this guy is whack. We're done with him. So whoever is writing to him, I think the police need to go to those people's homes and take the hard drives from their computer and find out what the impetus is or the desire to write to this guy. How does he have pen pals? I don't get it. Dr. Drew, this is a mess, and the only thing that I think is going to cause a break in this case is for them to attack the weakest link. And the weakest link here is Courtney. She's keeping quiet for one of two reasons. Either because he has convinced her, Justin has convinced her that she was involved enough to be just as culpable as him and that she'll go down with him if she says anything, or maybe she did help. Maybe she did help, with the disposing of the body or cleaning up after the fact or whatever. So I think they need to isolate her, find a reason to arrest her, maybe on a 3-day weekend so the judicial calendar won't run and she doesn't have to be charged until Monday or Tuesday, and work her over. Put the squeeze on her. Put her kid in foster care over the weekend and squeeze this information out of her. She needs to cut a deal with the DA and talk, and they need to go after Courtney.
Again, Danine is into the thumb screws, guys. She is. Danine is brutal. Thank you, Danine. Always taking me to places that are uncomfortable.
What gets on my nerves about this case the most is that so many people stood by and have done nothing. And that happens in so many of the cases we deal with on this show, is that people see bruises and they see things that are alarming and they do nothing about it. They don't say anything. Hey, it's birthdays are passing, Christmas is passing. Where's she at? Nobody cares. That's what annoys me. And it's what gets on my nerves.
Now,
I'm going to say something that's probably not going to win me any points around here.
Wait, hold on a second. Danine, really? You're going to say something controversial? Go ahead.
Joining us now is the author of Ultimate Betrayal, relationship expert Danine Manette.
Like, you're
criminal investigator.
That's correct.
And a relationship expert.
Yes, ma'am.
So the guy has no chance with you.
No, I'm on top of everything.
But you've been married for 14 years.
Yes, I have.
Everything's going well, but you're the perfect person to ask this question. Around the holidays, this is a good time to catch a cheater.
It is, because the other woman is expecting just as much time as the wife is, or the girlfriend. And a man is going to have to try and figure out how he's going to split his time between the two. Plus, he's going to have to buy gifts for both.
Yes.
And a lot of times, men don't want to go to the store on 2 different occasions, so they're going to go out one time and they're going to get gifts for both you and the other one.
And a lot of times,
sometimes it's the same gift.
Same gift.
Yes,
I've heard
that's correct.
Stuff like that.
That's correct.
How do we catch this guy then if we think our guy's cheating?
Well, if you have an indication, then you already kind of know what to look for. When you get the receipt out of the bag, because a lot of times the guy will leave the receipt in the bag even though he wraps the gift and puts it under the tree.
Yeah.
You know, you may want to check and see if there's something else on that
go rooting through the garbage for those receipts.
And joining us now with more insight into why men cheat is Danine Manette, an infidelity expert and author of Ultimate Betrayal. And Danine, as we just saw, the men, at least that we portrayed in this last piece, are all powerful. They're celebrities. They're in the spotlight. So you'd think that they would know that people were watching them. Why did they think they could get away with it?
Well, when you're dealing with celebrities a lot of times, and athletes and famous, rich, powerful people, there's a sense of entitlement. There's a feeling that I'm untouchable, just like Tiger Woods said in his statement a couple of weeks ago, the rules don't apply to me. They just, kind of feel entitled a lot of times. There's something I call the X factor, which is the uncalculated risk that cheaters take when they orchestrate these triangles. You have no idea how a person is going to react once they're hurt or in pain, whether it's the spouse or the other woman. In the Steve McNair situation, if Elin did in fact attack Tiger, you just never really know, and cheaters don't really take that into account when they orchestrate these triangles. It can be deadly.
What are some of the telltale signs?
Oh, there's so many things. Changes in behaviors, changes in patterns, whether or not, just something small such as every time you get in the passenger seat of the car, you have to adjust it. The ringer being turned off on the cell phone, strange names of people you've never heard of. All of a sudden, your spouse or partner is hanging out with these people somewhere, and you're like, where do these names, where do these people come from?
Yeah.
Sudden desire to go to the gym, work out, or, just this whole midlife crisis type attitude that you may notice that your partner is going through.
So if you suspect something's going on, how do you confront the person?
Well, you gather your evidence first. A lot of people make the mistake of finding something and then rushing in there into confrontation.
Do you think the person should do it themselves, or have someone like you gather the evidence?
Oh, no, you need to do it yourself.
Really? What kind of evidence are we talking about?
We're talking about hairs on clothing. We're talking about hairs in the lint dryer or the screen.
You talk about even the passenger side of the headrest.
Exactly.
As you go in there and check for hairs.
Exactly.
And, and all.
If you're prepared to do this, and if you're prepared to really find out if someone is cheating on you, you have to be ready to go the entire distance. You've got to do what it takes to find the information.
And then you confront the person.
Correct.
With the news. And of course, I don't know what you're talking about. Sweetheart, would I do that to you?
Well, there's something in my book about something called Jedi mind tricks, and that's pretty much where you have your information and you run in there to confront, and the other person calls you stupid and crazy and psycho, and they never give you an answer to the question that you're asking them, and that gives them an opportunity to kind of buy time and get their story straight. It's a Jedi mind trick, and my book teaches you how to stay away from it.
You can do it all from the palm of your hand. Visit golden1.com to find out how easy it is to bank with your mobile device. Come on over to Golden One. Anyone can.
Associate Pledge can help you protect the business you've built, the reputation you've earned, and the community you care about.
Danine Manette, Ron Owens, cheating spouses on Valentine's Day.
She is so careless that she pays for the hotel room on a credit card.
Sometimes people are careless because they want you to find out. Maybe she's crying out for help in the relationship. Maybe she's trying to let you know, hey, I'm over here. I need something that you're not giving me. And this could absolutely or possibly be an opportunity for you to repair your relationship if indeed this is a cry for help. On the other hand, maybe she just doesn't care. Maybe she doesn't care if you find out. Maybe she does want to hurt you. So you need to take a good look at your relationship and try and figure out whether or not this person is crying for help, and maybe it is salvageable, that's something you can work through, or maybe she's just disrespecting you blatantly and doesn't care about your feelings.
Joe in San Rafael, welcome to KGO.
Well, I want to ask you a question. What do you do if you've been cheated on, okay, by your spouse, and then you're divorced and you're with somebody else and you suspect them of cheating, but it could be in your head because of what happened to you? You know what I'm saying?
It's really, really hard. Once bitten, twice shy.